Hello, I'm Ali Patterson and welcome to the FinTech Show. On today's episode, we're looking at how banks are completely transforming the way they operate by using innovation sandboxes and partnering. No longer the sandcastles of old, they've torn down these walls and they're open for innovation. To find out just how embedded this new strategy is across the industry, I've brought in guests from 3 different institutions to hear their thoughts. Joining me from Switzerland, we have Anders Christensen, who heads up the Avaloq One ecosystem at Avaloq, a company that focuses on creating the software for core banking infrastructure. From the Spanish banking giant BBVA, we have their cloud services technical director, Ruben Gonzalez Blanco. And last but not least, we have Sohail Raja from Societe Generale, who heads up their execution platforms and is their UK Chief Digital Officer. Let's talk about fintech partnerships. How important, well, really, how critical do you think fintech partnerships are?
I think it's everywhere present in partnerships and fintech partnerships in particular, because you want to keep the finger on the pulse. So very important. The idea is always to build by partner, right? So do you build it? It takes you somewhere between 18 months to 36 months. Do you buy it? Expensive M&A lawyers, or I think we all can agree on partner is the best way.
How important are fintech ecosystems when it comes to being able to deploy new products or technologies such as AI across the whole business?
Absolutely. I think it's important to be plugged into an ecosystem of some description and then being smart around those partnerships and investments as well. Like I said, going back to this kind of use case scenario and saying, well, is it fit for purpose? Is it going to give us a solution to a problem that we've identified that we can work with a client or internally to enhance our relationship with the client? And I think if we keep going back to that, and I use the word problem, and I don't mean it from a negative perspective. Challenge is probably the better phrase that we should be using, but it's the same kind of philosophy, which is there's a challenge, there's a problem. How do we fix it? How do we think around that? And what can we use in the ecosystem as well as internally? Because we still have a lot of assets internally, and what we're trying to do is it's kind of think about the reusability and repurposing, and also making sure that whatever somebody else has done something, that we can reuse that. And we don't have to kind of start from scratch. So again, having an internal ecosystem that says, hey, I've got a great idea, it's solving this particular problem. Actually, there's an API ready for that. So can we use that API? Is it documented very well? Can we test it? Can it be extended easily now that we need to offer this particular feature to a client? So it's also internally, looking in terms of ecosystems and the approach that we take and moving away from silos to a much more open mindset within organizations. And then thinking about outside that to see, okay, well, outside of the open source capability, and a lot of these platforms and frameworks are using open source platforms as well. So we're doing that. And then also looking at, okay, third parties or partners that have something different or unique that we could then offer into our platform or our offering to clients internally.
In the late 90s and the beginning of this century, the trend was to absorb everything, especially in technology, because we thought as an industry that technology was a commodity. It was not essential for the business. But as I said in the beginning, banks rely completely on technology. We are a technological company in some way. The strategy, I think, has changed a lot in terms of what traditional banks do. BBVA, I think, is a good example of that, because rather than outsourcing, we have changed ourselves to in-source everything, in-source technology, in-source talent, because without software engineers, without data scientists, without developers, software developers, it's not possible to deliver technological products, and we are a technology company at the end of the day. So rather than continuing outsourcing, we have started to insource and transform ourselves into a more technological company, more software development centric company, which is, I think, the key element. You want to be a digital company. If you look at the digital companies that are outside, they are mainly software engineering based companies. And it's something that banks and traditional companies lost the last century, the 90s and the beginning of this century, because we thought that the technology was not essential for the business, and it is, especially in the modern world, in which everything is digital, in which having control of the technology and the software is essential if you want to create new products and new digital services. So insourcing is one of the key things. Outsourcing is something that should be reviewed very carefully, and only outsource certain parts that are not critical for the business. And if you have the capabilities to deal with the outsourced part, because sometimes you outsource certain parts of the business, but then you don't have the capabilities to control what is outsourced and how it's managed. Instead of outsourcing, I think the new paradigm requires partnering rather than outsourcing. So on one hand, we should insource a specific technology and skills that are needed to deliver our services. And for those skills and technologies and products that are out of our scope or that provide something relevant for our customers, I think we need to partner with the companies that they provide those services.
I've got to ask you my favorite question, which is, it does seem that banks have gone from being very vertically integrated, everything on-prem, everything in-house, everything hidden behind quite tall stone walls, and now it's opened up as part of an ecosystem. It's working with best-in-class suppliers. Where do you see Avaloq's role within this ecosystem?
I think the same way. I think if you apply the 80-20 relation to a bank, we did the same thing. We were very closed until 2011. And then we actually realized that we were not fast enough to develop stuff ourselves. And what happened now is we also saw fintechs run around us. So we provide the entire, Avaloq provides the entire stack to an advanced private bank or wealth manager or retail bank, universal bank. And that contains 70 modules. Now, to develop a module can take anywhere between 18 months to 3 years. So by partnering with a fintech, oftentimes we're able to add features and functionality much faster. We can literally do it in months. And that is both to our own product stack, but also to, shall we say, a bank comes to us, an Avaloq bank, and says, I'd like to add iWhip to my CRM system. Then we have the API and the sandbox to do so in a couple of weeks.
Can you tell me a little bit about the Avaloq sandbox and how sandboxes are, as a whole, are quite an important element?
Absolutely. I mean, APIs are our lifeblood, and APIs run in the sandbox. The sandbox is a model of your bank in the cloud. You literally can have a basic sandbox, which will be with funny data, Madonna, Jimi Hendrix, but we're also just ran a successful pilot with one of our clients now, and we're bringing to market as an advanced sandbox, which will be a synthesized, anonymized of customer identifying data in the cloud. So that means you will have your front, your middle, your back. We'll clean up the balance sheet so it's impossible to recreate what you really are. And you will be able to use this as your playground or sandbox to work with multiple fintechs connecting to your tech stack. And that you could do in the front, the middle, or the back. The front, of course, takes some GUI integration if you want to build it into your web banking or wherever you may want to connect it. If you connect it straight into the Avaloq core platform, the ACP, you could also just exchange fields of data. And so in the world of open banking, this is very handy when it comes to connecting to fintechs in weeks or months.
APIs in this ecosystem makes RAR also essential, because unless you behave as a platform for others, it's very difficult to also succeed in this open world in which anyone can develop on top of the others new products and services. So part of the strategy is also having open APIs and an open innovation ecosystem. So APIs play a special role in all of this, and everything is designed to be accessed and consumed through APIs. And that's part of the major transformation we have been in, and also other banks. So the rules have changed, and now even more than we were, banks are technology and software development companies.
There's two angles on cloud, and I think the first angle was obviously from a cost reduction perspective and seeing how that could reduce one direct cost in terms of kit and infrastructure, and moving away from buying hardware every 2-3 years to now in effect a subscription model. And we have to be careful on that, because the cost the more we use, the more we're going to get charged. It's kind of thinking in a smart way again in terms of what are we trying to do, what is the benefit, do we need to scale up, and if we do, then we have that flexibility. So then looking at that from a cost and scale perspective, and then running the numbers against what a classic in-house solution would be. And we moved to cloud again over about 5 years ago. We started that progression, if you like, 5 years ago. I think in terms of going forward and what we're seeing with clients, I think clients are also moving towards cloud, and they want to adopt cloud again from a cost reduction perspective, if it makes sense from their own digital transformation challenges that they have and that program work that they're looking to do, but also looking at how they interact with other providers, data sources in particular. So whether that be from the buy side or whether it be from alternate data sources. So having it available in the cloud and then delivering that via an API or through another mechanism to a client is something that we're seeing a lot more. And that interaction of data analytics, developing pricing, developing ideas, using that infrastructure, if you like, kind of enables and allows that and accelerates that kind of collaboration and co-creation, if you like, of ideas and maybe product ideas or product solutions, or it being very much even more partnership with our clients that are moving towards that kind of framework. And again, I think with SG Markets, that gives us that leveraging capability to handle clients that are just happy to get a price request and want to take that from us, or they may be more sophisticated and they want to get data and price ideas from other providers and then build their own models. And we're happy to support that. And I think we've seen that potential. Cloud has enabled us to do that and put us in a position where we can have those conversations, real conversations, and switch on a data set or an API to a client relatively quickly than perhaps previously, or less mature banks would probably struggle with that. But where we're at, we're able to do that because we've had that framework in place over a number of years.
How have some of your customers reacted to some of these innovations that have come up? I mean, cloud is the obvious one. Didn't it really exist 10 years ago? So how have you really reacted to elements such as this?
Great question again. And we host 35 banks in the cloud right now. As one example, so we're critical infrastructure in Switzerland, for example. We have about 4 service centers worldwide where we basically run the BPaaS operations, the business process as a service operations, that's the back office. And we run the software front to back, that's the front office and back office, out of different locations. So COVID meant that we needed to make sure that our workforce was one, safe, and 2, could work remotely and keep the engines running. On the fintech side of things, it also meant an increased demand for especially onboarding. We saw a lot of onboarding. We saw a lot of digital banking tools also. And I mean, you can see the stock price of DocuSign, for example. Amazing. It's not even a fintech, but it's just an amazing technology. All of these tools that enable us to become more efficient and do it digitally are exploding.
In terms of collaboration and in general, I would say that a cloud-based approach makes the collaboration easier, because any IT resource, as I said before, can be provisioned on demand without having to talk to anyone or having complex processes for doing that. The other advantage, I think, is that all the security is already embedded into one platform, which is the cloud. And overall, that platform is global. So you can collaborate globally to anyone, and you can offer resources globally to anyone. Rather than having specific collaborations country by country, like typically happens with traditional banks, have grown through acquisitions. By having a cloud platform, you have only just one touch point, which is in the cloud, to do all of this collaboration. Also, a cloud is based on APIs, self-service APIs, so it's easier to foster the collaboration with developers, not only just well-established companies, also any developer or any app developer, if fulfills the requirements to use the APIs, can use the APIs and create new products and new apps. So I think it's essential to be a platform and also be an open platform in the cloud in order to facilitate the collaboration.
In terms of Avaloq One and the marketplace, what are some of the collaborations that you're having at the moment and want to see? And looking to the future, what does this lead to?
No, I think that's a great question. So we see Avaloq One, which today is a dual marketplace with banks buying services from fintechs, already now develop into an open banking marketplace. And actually, where we're going is really in direction open finance. So we see the ecosystems that we have and others have, they're converging. We will see a future of Google, and everyone is going to hate me for saying this, but of switchboards. API management platforms enabling traffic to and from different ecosystems where you no longer own your clients. And you don't have to protect them, they're your clients, but they can also be other people's clients. And vice versa, by having access to other ecosystems, you have access to other clients who can browse your selection as well. That would be the first one, like the convergence of ecosystems. Second, we see everyone becoming buyers and sellers. Today, we have banks developing solutions on the platform together with fintechs and sell them to other banks. That we saw also with, we had a bank, a non-Avaloq client out of Liechtenstein that are really strong in blockchain, and they're not interested in our banking stack per se, but they would like to post their blockchain service that they had developed for themselves in the marketplace and sell to other banks. And last but not least, the third one, I think this one is quite cool as well, is when you see fintechs starting to mate, if you will. They're looking at each other and they're seeing, I like your front-end design, I like your engine, or I like your digital pension thing there. This I don't have. So I think in the future we'll see a little bit of Lego bricking, if you will. We may even see combined products, or we may see some fintechs go together and develop something with a bank. And that for me is the definition of open banking, is when one or two or more partners go together to develop something, a solution that is sellable to others in the ecosystem, then, and it's a solution that no one could have made on their own, then you're truly entering into an innovation ecosystem. And I think that should be what should be driving all ecosystems, should be the innovation ecosystems, enabling them at the bottom of the ecosystems and feeding it into the wider group, if you will. So open banking today, digital finance tomorrow, open digital finance, and then comes open data. But that's still a little bit away. Should be interesting to see how that will go.